Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. I hope everyone is having a lovely, lovely day. Waiting for the stream to come online here. We see we have lots and lots of people already in the chat room. Lots of my regular listeners, people that are always here. Good to see you guys. Good to see my mom as well. We've got Charles Pixley. Charles Pixley is going to be joining us tonight. He's an editor. He is a bit of a researcher, and he was targeted by the FDA back in the 90s. So Charles is going to be joining us in just a minute. We're going to do shout-outs, but real quick, we're going to have a word from my sponsor to start off the show, and that will be starting here in just a moment. While we're waiting for that, I want to say hello to people from Massachusetts, Patriots from Texas, Patriots from Oregon, Kansas, Arizona. Who else is here, guys? Arizona. We've got upstate New York, Oklahoma.
With the many threats we face today, like the caravan amassing in Central America, widespread reports of human trafficking across the country, and the seemingly uncontrollable rise of socialism, the future of America is not promised, and neither is your safety. One of the best things you can invest in for your home protection is a Patriot flashlight. You'll never waste money on batteries again. The Survivor Tactical Flashlight is solar-powered. It lights up the darkest of nights with the powerful 500-lumen flashlight that can be seen from miles away. It features a life-saving emergency strobe light setting along with 4 more unique lighting modes. And you can charge your phone anywhere, anytime with the Survivor's USB port. Other features include a compass, rope and wire cutter, solar-powered recharging, high and low beam LED modes, a glass-breaking hammer, all while remaining lightweight and durable. Satisfied users have reported this flashlight to be an all-in-one lifesaver and wouldn't go anywhere without it. It's lightweight but very durable, compact but great for handling all emergencies. Patriot Flashlight is the perfect gift for you and your family. There's a limited supply available, and this is the very last chance to get yours at a discount before they sell out. Take advantage now and give you and your family the gift of night protection.
Visit patriotflashlight.com and use code REDPILL20 for 20% off. Thank you so much to the people at Patriot Flashlight for supporting my channel. It is due to them that I'm able to get this information out to you guys and not have to worry about the censorship of YouTube. So we have people from South Carolina, Southern California, a Navy vet from New Hampshire, Maryland, Florida, Pittsburgh, Tucson, Southern Florida, Maryland again, California, Oregon, another California. We've also got Washington, people from Washington, Indiana, Myrtle Beach, Colorado back again, Tampa, Florida, Southern California, North Carolina, New Jersey, another North Carolina. Awesome, guys. Florida, Ohio, Green Bay, Denver, Minnesota, Australia. Good to see my friends from down under. Minnesota, New York, Cabot, Pennsylvania, Canada, Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, Dallas, Texas, Kiwi Land, yes, the other down under, Thailand, Buffalo, New York, cool, Thailand, Texas, Oklahoma, Tarzana, Fort Worth, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Colorado, Toronto, Norway, Riverside, California, New York, Rochester, Virginia, the Commonwealth, New Jersey, Alabama, Michigan, Houston, Oregon, people from all across the globe. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm glad you're here. Oh, there's my buddy Dana from Michigan, where we bark one, we bark all. We've got a lot of things to talk about tonight, you guys. Lots of interesting things to talk about. We're going to get my buddy Charles Pixley on the line right now, and I'm going to let Charles do his introduction. So let me get Charles on the phone. It'll be just a second until he answers. I think we're going to have an excellent show tonight. Charles, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well.
Excellent.
Look, I'm watching your chat stream. I've got the butterflies. It's very exciting. You had a great audience.
Well, don't worry about it too much. I think that everybody's going to be very kind, and they think they're definitely excited to hear what we're going to be talking about tonight. So, Charles, we're going to be. Oh, it looks like we've got a poor connection there. Why are they doing that to us right now? Let's see. Well, guys, Charles, can you hear me, buddy? It says that there's a poor connection. Charles, are you there? Are you there? Oh, man, you guys. Well, while we're waiting for Charles's connection to reconnect here, Charles is an editor. He is someone from the publishing industry, but he came to notoriety somewhat in the 1990s when the FDA decided to come after him for the work that he was doing with a homeopathic cancer cure. And, of course, anything that goes against the established medical industry domination scheme, they don't like the competition. So we're going to be getting Charles back on the phone here, you guys. I know that we lost him. I was waiting to see if it would reconnect. Oh, my God. God.
I'm back.
Yep. I accidentally just doxed myself. Great. Oh, I can't believe I just doxed myself.
I got something to tell you after the show.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Well, guys, I accidentally just doxed myself on the screen. I can't believe that happened. Okay, Charles, well, go ahead and give us an introduction and say hello to the audience.
Hello, everyone, and I think you're the best audience on the alt news. Red Pill has got one of the best shows out there, and he if you follow Q, you know that he's been saying, "You are the news. We are the news," and Red Pill is consistent with that because he's providing content and context, not just reading Q posts and so forth. I'd like to start by saying a caveat. First of all, we're not giving medical advice. We're not promoting anything. This is for educational purposes only. It's not approved by the FDA. We're operating under the First Amendment and also the Title 21, Part 56, the Uniform Code of United States Code, which is informed consent. So any medicine that you use, by law, you are supposed to be told everything about the medicine, whether all the positive as well as all the negatives. And that was what we started with when we started making available access to the knowledge and to the knowledge of a medicine called 714X. Everybody, unfortunately, and I'm sure that I won't get any pushback on this, everybody knows somebody with cancer or who's had cancer or who succumbed to chemo and radiation, and it's been blamed on cancer. And some people do die of the cancer before any treatments. That's true. Some survive. In the cancer industry, the survival rate is approximately 3% after 5 years. The use of chemo and radiation is an abysmal failure. It's been proven to be a total failure through two 20-year studies that ran concurrently and published in both JAMA and in the New England Journal of Medicine. There is a saying both in scripture that was both in the Talmud and also, by the way, in the Quran, that says if you can save the life of one person, then you've saved the whole world. We set upon this task in 1991 because I came across the knowledge of a man by the name of Gaston Naison. Gaston Naison is a Frenchman who lived in Lyon, or was from Lyon, and he created a microscope that enabled him to see in our living blood a life form known as the somatide, or what he called the somatide. This had originally been seen by a man by the name of Antoine Béchamp back in the 1800s. And this microzyma, or this life form, is indestructible. And it's in our blood, and it appears under high magnification. It appears as this tiny little dots of light, and it's the last stage of light before it becomes DNA. It's very interesting. It's indestructible. It's in all living forms, in all life. You can find it in moon rocks. You can find it everywhere.
Now, Charlie, why did it take until that point for the somatotides to be identified? Like, how were they not identified prior to that?
Well, when Béchamp saw them with his limited microscope, he would only see them between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon when the sun was at a certain apex with certain rays of light, or a certain spectrum of the light. And because he saw them and then nobody else could see them, they called him the noon lunatic. And Béchamp also is famous for a lifelong battle with Pasteur. Pasteur always said that the disease comes from microbes and from bacteria and so forth. And Béchamp argued, no, that it's from the milieu, it comes from within. And it's a development from the weakness of our system. And now the other interesting part about the somatides that made it so important is that they have a 3-stage life cycle that is observable in the microscope, which is displayed in the book that we wrote called Do No Harm. And you can see the pictures of it. And this 3-stage life cycle is consistent in a healthy body. But when a body starts to degenerate, whether it be towards cancer or towards some other malady, it goes through a 16-stage cycle. So it's pleomorphic. It's like a butterfly, pleomorphism. So that we have within us observable microbes. This somatide, when it goes through its 16 stages, you can accurately pre-diagnose degenerative disease and cancer, or AIDS in particular, as it's evolving. So with that tool, he then developed a medicine known as 714X. It's a homeopathic solution. It's called trimethylbicyclonitroaminoheptane chloride. You don't have to memorize that. That's also in the book. And it's to put it in simple words, it's a 3C solution of camphor, 1 molecule of ammonium, and 1 molecule of nitrogen. Now, why is that important? What I'm giving you right now, I want this to sink in. I want you to think about this. This is blockbuster. This is why, ultimately, why the FDA came, attacked, raided our office, and ended up putting me in prison. If we can pre-diagnose, well, first of all, the medicine, all cancer secretes a hormone known as human chorionic gonadotropin, right, or HCG for short. It's the same hormone that the urine test is looking for in pregnancy. So all cancers secrete HCG. Now, the doctors in the mainstream doctors will admit that they know that's true, but they'll also tell you that in some cancers it's not observable. Well, this is disputed, and through the microscopic use through the microscope, you can see that it's secreted by all cancers. Simultaneous to Dr. Nason's putting together his microscope and his discoveries, our chief investigator, Dr. Dietmar Schildvector, spent 20 years developing a blood test that's the most highly calibrated blood test in the world, which is still available, and it was covered by insurance up until yesterday. And
really?
Not 100%, but whatever they will cover, they'll cover some of it. So it's not an expensive test. I mean, I suppose out of pocket, $600 is it's a mortgage payment. But
right,
if you're checking for cancer, that's important, and it's not so out of line where if you go to a hospital, it might be tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So anyway, the blood test at Schildvector, he refined it to the point where both Nason and Schildvector's tests can pre-diagnose cancer and degenerative disease 2 years before it happens with a 3% margin of error.
Wow.
So here comes the hammer. Here comes the boom. Here comes the boom, boom, boom. If you can pre-diagnose cancer 2 years before it happens and use the 714X, which causes the body to reject the cancer because it shuts off the secretion of the hormone known as human chorionic gonadotropin. If you can pre-diagnose it 2 years before it happens and treat yourself at that stage for 1, 2 months, 3 months maybe, and eliminate the cancer at that stage, then quite frankly, we've eliminated cancer from the face of the earth. Not the occurrence of it, not the cause of it, but the outcome of it.
And I would imagine that would be quite the scary proposition for the cancer industry that's built up around the treatment and the maintenance of cancer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In this country alone, cancer is approximately at $1 trillion a year. Now that's including the medicines, the care, the hospitals, the big pharma gets the biggest chunk of it. But since they shut us down, when I finally entered the federal system in 1996, since that time, approximately 40 million people have succumbed. So they've blocked the availability and the knowledge of this medicine, along with numerous other ones, which I can outline. So 40 million people is a continuation of what we thought we ended in the Second World War. And I won't use that big G word.
Sure, sure. Now, one thing that I did want to ask you about this, Charlie, is it possible for 714X to treat the Lyme disease? Is it effective against Lyme disease? Have you seen any research to support that?
No, I have not, but we've seen it used in immune disorders. I would say that you should try. I mean, no guarantees on any of it. Even what we're telling you now, there's no guarantees in life about any therapy for that matter. But
right. Well, if you're looking at even the co-pays on treatment for cancer as opposed to the payments for like however many doses it takes. I mean, we were talking about this the other day. What would the typical regimen of 714X be?
Well, we consistently, when I say we, I formed probably the first citizen-organized institution review board under the laws of Congress. And the purpose of the Institutional Review Board is to protect the public, to inform the public, but also, moreover, to track the protocols so that it's used properly by the physicians on the team. And we would also use more than just 714X. Most times, most of the people that came through our doors, so to speak, were 100% terminal. We didn't have the luxury of garnering people who are just now finding out. And even if they just now found out, typically the fear has been implanted so deeply that they go right back to their doctor and say, doctor, what do you think? And they'd give them our book. And our book is so complete. It covers every aspect, legal, you name it. It's all in there.
Right. And I just want to mention, everyone, that if you're interested in getting a copy of Charlie's book, there's a link in the description below this video. You can go and purchase it immediately. Is it an ebook or is it in print, on paper?
It's the ebook. My book was banned by the federal court. This is a side note. This is my second interview in 22 years. My first one was with John Wells on Caravan to Midnight in March. I have kept my mouth shut for 22 years because the various regimes out there, let's put it this way, with Mr. Trump in office, I feel a lot more secure, and this is the time to reveal the truth on all levels, regardless of what your strength and what your knowledge base is. So I'm now reaching out again. The book is, I've had a few left over.
Do you have a copy you can show us there?
I have a few left over. So what I've done is I've scanned it. Can you see it?
Yep, I can see that. Yep, do no harm. 714X, defying a hopeless prognosis. Excellent. Right.
So what we've done, what I did is scan it. I scanned it, and my next will update it, add more materials, and make it more presentable. It's still functional. I mean, all the knowledge is there, every conceivable thing that you'd want to know about cancer. And in fact, in here, we published, nobody was talking about Otto Warburg back in 1990. There was no internet in those days. In fact, give you an example, I did a radio show with KABC in Los Angeles at 7 in the morning, their time. Mm-hmm. And everybody's driving their top down on the freeway in California, and it was a 5-minute show. It was just a shock jock type thing. Mm-hmm. And I got 3,000 phone calls to give you an idea of how much cancer is out there. Wow. We got so much response. We went from obscurity to 50,000 terminal patients came through our phones in a very short period of time. And in the beginning, we talked about it just like we're talking now. And the people would call in and say, well, if this is so good, why doesn't everybody know? Well, there's the evidence of the indoctrination.
Of course.
TV.
There have been so many alternative cancer treatments that have come up over the years, and systematically they've all been suppressed. Now, you had said that you know of a couple offhand. Can we talk about several of them? Maybe the evolution of cancer treatments and how they've been suppressed?
Sure. Probably the first one, the most famous one, is Royal Raymond Rife, who created a microscope and was able to measure the frequency of viruses and bacteria and various other things. And they put a virus in a test tube 2 miles away behind a cement block wall, and with his beam, he shattered the virus 2 miles away.
Wow.
They destroyed his microscope. God only knows where the knowledge is. It's probably buried somewhere in secret file somewhere.
The Bayer basement.
Right, and it's lost. I mean, you'll see if you look up Rife microscope. There's people out there that are selling, an aberration of it, but the actual microscope is lost to history for the time being.
Yeah.
The other very famous one is a man. There's the Warburg brothers from Germany. One of the brothers was a banker. I don't know what the third brother did, but Otto Warburg was a physicist and a physician. And Otto Warburg got 2 Nobel Prizes. His second one came for discovering the prime cause and prevention of cancer.
Yeah.
If anybody has watched Ty Bollinger's series, The Truth About Cancer, which came out in the last few years, and if you've seen that whole series, if you watch it straight through, everything that was said in that series, word for word, is what we taught 1991, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. And so it's still true today. But
David Munyon, just to interject, he says that Otto Warburg discovered that cancer cells use sugar for energy as opposed to oxygen in normal cells.
That is correct.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right. What Warburg, this treatise, right, this is a complete treatise. So if you're a chemist, you'll spend a few months analyzing what he said. It took me 3 months to boil this down to what it actually says, which is any cell deprived of oxygen by over 35% begins to ferment the blood sugar, and it becomes the neoplasm. It forgets the memory of what the cell's purpose is, and it begins to replicate, and that's the neoplasm. That is the cancer. So
wow.
The answer to that is if you flood your system, if you maybe you know or you want to research a guy named Ed McCabe, Mr. Oxygen. If you flood your system with oxygen or ozone, then you're going to wipe out all the microbes and all the bacteria and all the cancers. All are anaerobic. So by flooding your system with oxygen, whether it be through exercise or ozone or however,
yeah,
you stand a much better chance of keeping yourself healthy.
You know, what's interesting about that is my friend, my mod, Bree, who has Lyme disease, that's one of the treatments. That's one of the only successful treatments that she can do is an ozone treatment for her blood.
Well, to answer your original question about that,
yeah,
I had a friend who had Lyme disease. 100%, I'm told, now I don't, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm told that 100% of the people with Lyme disease have fibromyalgia.
Yes. And
then they also start, over a long period of time, they start to lose, their brain function starts to degenerate. And there's other things that happen too, which I forget what they are, but there's a lot of side effects. So I I study homeopathy, so I found a homeopathic nosode, which is the actual live virus that's titrated out by 200 times, which means there's nothing left of the original Lyme disease in the solution. And I gave her that. She took it 3 times, 5 little white pills, sugar pills. She took it 3 times. She had what is known in homeopathy as a healing crisis, and it was gone.
Wow.
So homeopathy is one solution that has potential. I cannot say whether it will or will not.
Now, I also do want to say that people have been in the chat have been asking where they can find a distributor of 714X. I've added that into the description, and I'm actually going to be putting it into the chat below. This is a company that Charlie had told me about, serb.com. Okay, so continuing on with the ideas of alternative cancer cures, or treatments, rather. Any other ones that have been notable over the years?
Sure. The one that's readily available in Mexico is Hcg. It's completely non-toxic. It's a herbal solution. Harry Hcg was there's a video that I sent you a link to. It's hard for me to manipulate this.
No,
and
you're okay.
Set it up. Anybody asks me, I can give it to them. But there's a link that there's a movie where it's black and white and talking about Harry Hcg and where he would. I mean, it's a great story, and they never could quite bust him because they put him in jail and he had $10,000 in his pocket. He'd buy his way out, and and all the people who he was healing the ladies would come with pies and cookies, and they'd stand outside the jails, and the jailers would feel guilty, so they would let him go. I mean, he was just phenomenal. And then a lady, I think Mildred Nelson or Mildred, I can't remember her last name. Her name is Mildred. She was operating the clinic in Tijuana, and that's still there, and it's very viable. And a lot of people use it with great success. And if you watch the video, you'll see. Yeah, you'll see the testimonials.
I pulled it up earlier, but unfortunately, I can't get to it while we're on the phone with each other. But you guys, I will update the description after the video and throw that into the description.
Yeah, it's about an hour-long video. It's not something you just pop in there anyway. But yeah. There's several out of Germany. One of the more interesting stories I thought was there was a man, our doctor by the name of Andrew Ivy, who was a Nuremberg panelist, and he was out of Chicago, and very highly respected, ethical doctor, and he was a panelist in the Nuremberg trials. And when he was in Germany, he discovered there was a treatment known as Krebiozen. Krebiozen is another therapy that there's no, just like 714X and Hcg, and there's another one, Cooley's toxins, and there's a couple more that there's no evidence whatsoever of anything in the solution that they're putting into their body. There's no active ingredient. It's like water. Mm-hmm. That's always been the argument with the allopaths. The allopathic industry has always hammered the homeopaths is they're quack. Anything that you look up on the internet of any therapy, if I listed off a dozen right now, you go there and look at them, and they all say the same thing, that there's quack watch. Yeah. And as you've probably heard,
I have, yes.
There's a word that the CIA created to dispel interest. It's called conspiracy theory.
Yep.
Well, they also created quack.
Yep, that's right.
Quackery is the same kind of brainwashing.
Yep. Now, just real quick, I want to give a couple of thank yous because we had some super chats come through. New Guardian, thank you. Jeff Stewart, thank you. Carolyn Burton, thank you. David Munyon, we've talked about that a couple of times. Stitch, thank you very much. Rudy Angelo, and Stephen Gilchrist, thank you very much. Also, David Munyon mentions that sourwood bee honey, it's only found in Brazil, and it's a cure for cancer. I haven't heard that myself, but maybe we should talk about the method of homeopathic medicine. We had discussed this the other day. And like you just said, the actual whatever it is that they're giving is essentially just water. And how do they go about creating that? And what's the science or the idea of it behind it?
Well, the first one, Dr. Samuel Friedrich Hahnemann. I forget. He's got a very long name. Samuel Christian Friedrich Hahnemann. I got all the names, but I may have in the wrong order. But Hahnemann is the one who came up with homeopathy, and he discovered that the bark of the cinchona tree causes the same symptom in a healthy person as somebody who has malaria. So this is called the law of similars. And so, for example, let's just take that same example. They took the bark of the tree, and they put it in pure alcohol, say high proof vodka or some
Make an extract.
Everclear,
Yeah.
and they extract that, and they take a part, whatever that part may be. Let's say an ounce.
Okay.
They put that 1 ounce with either 10 or 100, depending whether they're making the more diluted it is, the more powerful it is. It's the opposite of allopathic medicine. So let's just use the 100. So they take 1 part and add it to 100 parts of pure water and succuss it or shake it. Mm-hmm. And so they're energizing that water with the substance from the extract. Then they take 1 part of that and add it to 100 and succuss it. And they take 1 part of that and add it to 100 and succuss it. So if they only do it 3 times, that's a 3C. Mm-hmm. But once they've gone to 24C, then it's beyond the Avogadro level, and there's nothing left of the original substance left all that's left is the energy.
Yes.
So when the medicine that I use for the Lyme, the one I told you about with the lady with Lyme, mm-hmm. was a 200C. So extremely powerful. So even in homeopathy, you have to be careful. You can't just jump in. You should consult a homeopath, because 3 days if you're with Lyme, 3 days with a nosode of 200C may be adequate. If you go beyond that, you might cause some other thing. In homeopathy, they do what they peel the onion. Now, a true homeopath will sit with somebody for 2-3 hours and take every symptom. Well, I wake up in the morning, my eye is doing this, or if I drink cold water, I get my leg quivers, or I have nightmares, or whatever. Everything that happens within your life self, they take it down. And each one of those things is a symptom of something. Well, they don't treat, in homeopathy, doesn't treat symptoms. They treat the whole being for those symptoms to come out.
Yeah.
Where allopathic medicine hammers on the symptom and does damage to the whole being. So
right.
That's where we came up with the saying holistic medicine. These are all misnomers, like alternative medicine. Homeopathy and acupuncture and chiropractic and osteopathy and Ayurvedic medicine, the oldest medicine known to man.
Right.
These are not alternative. They're the traditional. They're the original. In this country alone, until 1935, 65% of all Americans used homeopathy solely. Mm-hmm. In fact, by the grace of God and by Senator Royal Copeland from New York, who was a commissioner of health for the state of New York, he became a senator, federal senator, serving New York. And he was also the dean of a homeopathic college in New York City. And while they were forming the Food and Drug Cosmetic Act, Royal Copeland preserved homeopathy for everyone. They grandfathered in the law. So in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, homeopathy is grandfathered into law so that the materia medica is preserved, and the FDA cannot say it's unapproved. In 1962, John F. Kennedy signed into law the Kefauver Act because of thalidomide. I don't know if anybody remembers thalidomide. I'm a baby boomer. That was a big deal then.
Yes, that was the flipper babies.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's still happening with other medicines, but you don't hear any outcry so much. But because of the mainstream news is not, they're not on the side of the public, as you know.
Well, no, I mean, I was actually watching a broadcast recently where they were, attacking mothers and fathers who didn't want to vaccinate their children. And so the whole point of the broadcast was talking about the safety of vaccinations. Well, it turns out that a large shareholder and an advertiser on the channel was Merck. And Merck is one of the major manufacturers of vaccines. So, of course, they don't have our best interest at heart. They have their advertisers or their financial interests at heart. So, well, let's talk about how you got into 714X and the story behind that, and then what happened as a result.
Well, in 1990, I was visiting a friend of mine in Woodstock. and I had just come out of bankruptcy. I had broken my I was a stockbroker, broke my shoulder, and lost everything, and had to start over again. And I'm going, I got to do something. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And the secret of being an entrepreneur is find a need and fill it.
Right.
So I'm praying and praying and praying. Find a need and fill it. Find a need. So finally, God, okay, boom, here. Found this book by Ed McCabe called Oxygen Therapies. And in that book, he talks about how he can cure cancer with oxygen. I go, what? There's a cure for cancer? What? Wow. And I had a corporation that I bought for $1 called Writers and Research. And I said, Writers and Research? Hey. So I called up Ed and I said, I'll make a deal with you. I'll put you on radio. You give my phone number. And I'll buy your book wholesale and sell it retail. He said, deal. And within 3 months, we sold $13,000 worth of his books. And the next year came the Gulf War with the first Gulf War.
Yep.
And on CNN was Major General Perry Smith, the bald general who was the spokesman for the military concerns on CNN. And he wrote a book called Taking Charge, How to Run a Large Organization Successfully. So I called up General Smith, and he said, sure, Charlie, let's go. Let's do it. And I got General Smith booked on Dr. Schuller's Hour of Power, and we sold 60,000 books in 10 minutes.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, it was boom. So went from bankruptcy to the first full year, 250,000. But in that process, somebody said to me, hey, if you're doing that for these guys, you should do this for this one. And he gave me a book called it was called The Galilee of the Microscope by Christopher Bird about Gaston Nason. It was later changed, the title was later changed to The Persecution and Trial of Gaston Nason. So I contacted Chris Bird, and sure, Chris, he was jumping up and down excited. And in addition to that, my first book was called The Handbook for Power, Physician's Handbook for Power. And I put together all these articles, and very similar to the Do No Harm, but Do No Harm is far more refined and more perfected.
Right.
Anyway, so Chris was very excited, but Chris was unable to do radio. I mean, he just couldn't do it. He had all these geniuses swirling around him. He wrote The Secret Life of Plants. He wrote The Secrets of the Soil with Peter Tompkins. And Chris just couldn't summarize, because sometimes radio shows are only 5 minutes, so you got to be able to get it out there.
Right. Get to the point.
He wanted to tell from the history of man. So I started doing the interviews, and then somebody told me, one of the doctors that I met told me, you need an institutional review board. And I said, what's that? And so I went to Cornell, to the law library, and found out all what I needed to know. And we created, in 1992, we created an institutional review board under the laws of Congress. And then Dr. Schildvector was our chief investigator. Caroline Gray, we needed a woman on the board. That was one of the requirements. So Caroline Gray, who was summa cum in Greek classics, who also was the one who translated from the original Greek, the Hippocratic Oath, which is also in the book. And then we had Dr. Atkins, the diet doctor from New York City. He was on our board.
Yeah.
And we had some very, very famous people who were very willing to jump on. So we published the first edition of the protocol in Do No Harm in April of 92. In June of 92, Dr. Schildvector treated Berkeley Bedell, who was a congressman, for metastatic cancer. And then there was also, we also made a presentation in front of the NIH and in front of Congress. And the very next month, they banned 714X from coming in.
Put it on their radar, and they got it out of there real quick.
Immediately. As soon as Berkeley Bedell opened his mouth, boom, it was gone.
Wow.
And so then we did a presentation before Congress in 93. We then had our office was not raided, but they knocked on the FDA knocked on our door. Sherry Phillips was an agent and said, we'd like to come in. I said, come on in. We're not hiding anything. And she would go through our files on a day-by-day basis. Then we went back and did another presentation before Congress. And then I was ordered in August of 93, a year later, I was ordered to come to Rockville, Maryland. At which point they said to me, you're going to stop doing what you're doing, or we're going to find you guilty and put you in jail.
Guilty for what, though?
Right, exactly.
For saving lives.
They didn't care. They didn't identify guilty for what. They just said, we're going to find you guilty. In other words, they're almighty. We're going to find you guilty and put you in jail. Like I was already convicted from their mouth.
Right. No trial, no jury.
So being a fiery, I was still, now I'm 30 years later, and, I'm a Vietnam vet, and I took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it was clear to me that, and I knew the history of the Rockefeller cartel, or John D. Rockefeller took over the medical industry in the 1920s, but he kept homeopathic by his bedside for his entire life, or by his side.
That's something the wealthy and elite often do. They reserve the actual cures for themselves and then hoist the true quackery onto the public.
Right, and John D. Rockefeller was responsible for shutting down the industry through a guy named Morris Fishbein. Anyway, so in '94, I met with Governor Cuomo at a meeting in California, and at that point, there was legislation in front of the New York State Senate or Congress, whatever, and they had this legislation was to grant physicians freedom to practice any form of health care in the absence of harm to a patient without reprisal from medical or government agency. And I met with Governor Cuomo, and I told him our story. He said, Charlie, I've heard a lot about that. He went back to Albany, and he passed the law. So that was a victory. Then we went back out to California and met with Governor Wilson and his chief economic advisor in Sacramento. And in '94, we were raided at that point. That's when they came and they surrounded our house with armed agents and went through everything. They sent the IRS to pick up I had a 1992 Buick Riviera. It was a beautiful little car. I just made my last payment, and at 6 a.m. they came and took my car. And of course, we were prosecuted in the mainstream press here in Rochester, and we were found guilty before we went to court. So I had a friend named Alden Bryant, who was a former Navy SEAL and a guy who loved to do presentations at the UN, and he had the temperament where he could go to the UN and make a presentation. Where I don't have the temperament for that. At the time, it was like this is a very costly agency that doesn't do anything except cause problems.
Right. So
anyway, Alden said, "Hey, I know a guy named Philip R. Lee. He's a doctor, and he's the Assistant Secretary of Health. Do you think that would help?"
You think?
I said, "Alden, get on the phone." Anyway, so he got a meeting with Assistant Secretary Philip R. Lee, who was the boss over David Kessler, who was the commissioner at the time. If you remember David Kessler, he had Coke bottle glasses, and he was definitely Clinton's man. And anyway, he was the boss of the FDA, CDC, NIH, and the Indian Health Affairs. And we went there. I went there with my attorney, Nancy Lord, who had run for vice presidency as an independent candidate under the Libertarian Party. And Alden was there, and Dr. Lee. And Dr. Lee turned out to be just a real regular, nice guy from California. And I told him the whole story. And I said, what we came here for is a waiver. You have the ability to give us a waiver so that it bypasses all the rules and regulations, and we don't have to go through all this.
Now, before we go on, just so that everyone's clear, a waiver, what is the waiver and what does the waiver do for you guys? Because at this time, was it being marketed as, how was it being marketed? I mean, what were you guys doing wrong in the eyes of the FDA?
What I was doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
Just talking about it.
I was getting people fired up about it, and of course they came rushing in. And anybody who's listening tonight, everybody out there, for $10, this book is available, and I don't want to beg you, but gosh, I spent $500,000 in a year in federal prison, and there's all the time to put this together. We were the tip of the iceberg. I mean, tip of the spear back in those days, and it's taken. Now it's what, 30 years since we started.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is valuable information, and you should have it. Anyway, so why? What was the question?
Yeah. What were you doing wrong? I mean, because I mean, the FDA, they regulate medicine, okay, and this wasn't being marketed as a medicine per se. It was being marketed as a homeopathic treatment for cancer.
Well, we were just telling the truth about the medicine, and I have a natural tendency. I'm a catalyst by nature. I mean, I can walk in. I'm just catalytic, and I'm also a natural salesperson. And the bottom line is, there was a boy, 17-year-old boy by the name of Billy Best. You can look him up. There's a book. He wrote a book. Billy Best ran away from home to avoid chemotherapy from Boston's Dana-Farber, and it made big national news. He was on. His parents went on Good Morning America, and Billy, please come home. And they made a big fuss about it. Well, Billy, at the age of 17, was given one dose, or I don't think it was any more than one dose of adriamycin, which was one of the very, very powerful antibiotic, and it nearly killed him. It attacks the heart. So he said, that's it, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. And he ran away. And I guess he went off to family or friends in Texas. So since that news hit, I somehow got to Billy. I mean, I just have, God has given me a gift to be able to reach out to people and find people, like the six degrees of separation. Anyway, we got to Billy, and I told him about the medicine. And here's where the crime comes. I brought medicine into the United States and then got it to Billy.
Okay. And where was it being produced?
Well, it's always been produced in one place, and it still is being produced in one place in Rock Forest, Quebec.
Okay.
It's an interesting coincidence that Nason lives in Rock Forest, Quebec. We lived on Rock Beach in New York, and the FDA's in Rockville. But anyway, Nason manufactured the medicine up there in Rock Forest, and because of our efforts, we generated so much sales. I mean, and we were between that and the proteolytic enzymes that we used as an adjunct to assist the cancer being dissolved by the body. We haven't even covered the enzymes yet, but we used a combination. When I say we, Dr. Schildvector and the doctors in our group, I didn't use any of it. I used it on myself, but I didn't treat anybody, nor I practiced medicine or anything like that. There was no, I didn't then, and I don't now. If somebody wants coaching, I'm happy to coach, but I don't diagnose or.
I've actually got one of my viewers, Dr. B. She's asked for an introduction after the show because she initially, when the show started, she said that, yes, this information is hidden from doctors when they're in training. And she said that you're totally right about Nason's, Rife, Pkwy, and Hcg. None of these men and their discoveries are taught in allopathic med school. Rife's microscope was way better than what I use today.
Yeah, in fact, in those days, Nason's microscope was created by Zeiss, I believe.
Like the lens company?
Yeah, Zeiss and Nikon. I think it was Zeiss. I mean, there may be another one, but definitely Zeiss. I mean, this microscope, I don't know what you can see behind me, but it's giant. And but it's a dark field microscopy, and it sends a wave of light across the field, and it illuminates from underneath so that you're seeing the blood. There's a picture of it that I sent you. It's very hard to actually put it up on the screen, but anyway, you can see these color pictures. The only difficulty with the blood test that Nason does is you have to be there. So, and it's inexpensive. They take a drop of blood, put it on the slide. You look at it. Hey, there it is. And I can show you. Maybe here I can show you some pictures. But here's the cycle. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So there's the cycle of somatite. So you look at that, and here is, you can actually see, here's somebody with the beginning of cancer. You see the blood cells, you see the little dots inside the blood cell.
Yep.
This is somebody that's healthy. There's nothing. Okay. Now you go back a little further, and it gets scary. If you see this in your blood, you got problems, boy. See that?
Yep.
So that's terminal cancer. That's you're in deep trouble.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you can't be saved. It just means you're in trouble. Now, then it gets even worse. This is somebody. This is the same cell. This is the same cell with somebody with AIDS.
Okay.
Completely destroyed.
No, just real quick, my friend Diana also had commented and asked if you could elaborate on the way 714X is used for autoimmune diseases. Is the way that it acts on your body, is it the same regardless of whatever it is that it's treating?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And that is that it just allows your body to actually fight off whatever it is that's killing you?
Correct.
Okay.
We had a man who tried to bribe us, I guess you could say, but he had chronic fatigue.
Okay.
By the grace of God, I've never had chronic fatigue. I had the other. As the Q says, if you're awake, you can't sleep. I mean, if you know what's going on, you can't. I haven't slept in 40 years.
Very true.
2-3 hours a day. But anyway, he had chronic fatigue. He used the medicine for three months. Boom, gone. So, but we also use proteolytic enzymes to augment, so that you're basically. Our whole world, our whole population is ill to a lesser or greater degree. I mean, look, just go out to the store. How many people you see with canes? How many people I'm an example. Obesity. I'm 70 now, but still, we are starving. We're starving ourselves into obesity. You think obesity is from overeating? It's starvation from
necessary nutrients.
The minerals. Our soil has been leached. The minerals have been leached from the soil. Yeah. And this is where you go back to Chris Bird's other book, Secrets of the Soil. And if we remineralize our soil and get the sulfur in there and get all the minerals, then the plants leach out. They do this is where chelation comes in. Chelation was invented because of the study of plants. The plants chelate the minerals. It goes into the plants. We consume them. The animals are healthier. We're healthier. And if you have if your whole milieu is strong, then you don't get sick. That's it. So it's a sickness industry, not a wellness industry. And this is the argument. And this is where we came in and we stirred them up so severely. By the grace of God, they didn't have me murdered. And look at Andy Wakefield. He argued about the vaccinations.
Yes, and they destroyed him.
Now, just on that one side note, on the vaccinations, if everybody's been vaccinated, why are you so worried about me not being vaccinated?
Exactly. It's because the efficacy is crap. People who have the MMR vaccine still have like a 90% chance of contracting measles and then giving it to somebody else. So the science is just junk on that.
No, but just in logic, if you're vaccinated, why am I a threat to you?
Yeah, exactly. Right. You shouldn't worry about it, but it doesn't do anything. That's the thing. All right. So they're coming after you because you helped out Billy Best and because you had this win in New York. And so let's talk about the trial. I mean, how did that go?
Well, by that point, now the fire is really burning. And even though we were granted the waiver, what happened? So they charged me with 19 counts. They wanted me to go to jail for 19 years.
Wow. Throw the book at you.
I mean, come on. How many people have died of chemotherapy and other drugs and other diseases and even today, of all the things that are out there, that one of the number one causes of death in this country is prescription drugs.
Right, yeah.
And nobody is ever charged. Nobody has ever brought the cross to bear. So anyway, so I'm indicted. So I spent 3 months with my attorney in Savannah preparing. I mean, we read and read and read and read and read and read and read. So we get to the courtroom, and we were going to do a jury trial, which was how we set it up, and everybody was all excited about jury trial. And we did a fundraiser, and we raised a significant amount of money from people who had used the medicine and were happy to help us if they could. You know, $25 here and there. We raised quite a bit of money. It was a lot. We raised $80,000 on $25 donations, so that should give you an idea of people who were really upset. And my lawyer had gotten a call from the prosecutor, who I don't know what he said to him, I don't know what he promised him, but he changed the venue to a bench trial, which means the judge is the sole. He was the one who's going to decide, which caused a big upset. And what did I know? So we made a lot of mistakes. But anyway, so we went to trial, and the first day of testimony, by all anyone's judgment, there was the gallery was full of patients and people crying and wanting to speak out, and everybody gave their testimony, and it was clear that we were winning. It was clear that we were, even the judge said to one of the witnesses, "You tried to steal this technology from Mr. Pixley, didn't you?" I mean, he saw what was going on. The head of the Institution Review Board, guy's name is Paul Goebbels. He was there. And the judge asked him about the waiver. And Goebbels, I don't know. He said, "You don't know much about what's going on at the FDA, do you? What do you people do?" So the judge saw clearly what had happened and what was going on. Now comes the real hammer. And you take from it as you will. The judge, we were at trial 2 days. The first day, let's say it was a Monday. It might have been a Tuesday. I don't remember. First day of trial, we were going great. The judge is called to Washington and had a private meeting with Chief Justice Bill Rehnquist of the Supreme Court and POTUS 42. Who's POTUS 42?
Yeah, Bush.
No.
What?
William Jefferson Clinton.
Oh, Clinton, sorry. 42.
So Clinton and Rehnquist had a private meeting with the judge in my case. He walked into the room on the next day, which was, I think, a Thursday. And when he walked in the room, he had the upside-down smile, like you see with the Bill Barr. These guys, they take on so much pressure and so much heat of lies that they just, they lose their smile. Anyway, he walked in the room with that look on his face, and I turned to my lawyer and I said, "It's over. I'm done." And sure enough, by the end of that day, I was pronounced guilty. But the judge, he was gracious. He sentenced me to a year and a day. A year and a day means that I can get out early. If he had sentenced me to a year, then I would have to do the full year. So now by law, once you were found guilty, you have to appeal. So we went to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals several months later. And simultaneous to all of this, there were, in two circuits, the Ninth Circuit and the Second Circuit, I'm in the Second Circuit, they were arguing for doctor-assisted suicide. In the Ninth Circuit, they were arguing Jane Doe.
Oh, yeah.
If I remember correctly. And here, in the same village, same township, there was a doctor named Timothy Quill who was arguing the Second Circuit for doctor-assisted suicide, which is quite ironic that we're from the same township. So our argument, or my argument, was if you have the right to doctor-assisted suicide, you must also have the concomitant right to save your life through any means available. Common sense. Yep. And what is the Bill of Rights? The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mm-hmm. And we also had a second argument, that a necessity defense. The necessity defense means if you're in a theater and the theater is burning, and if you had, let's say you had to break into somebody's house because the house is on fire, but you've broken the law because you broke into their house. You did it out of necessity to save their life. So that's in a nutshell, that's a necessity defense.
So it was a necessity for you to bring the medicine in, because without it, the people would have died.
Exactly. So, but the first argument was the main argument. If you have a right to use any medicine available. So they waited for the Supreme Court to decide on Dr. Sitz's suicide, and once they did, they handed down the decision on my case, and they used a very clever, I don't know if you've ever listened to how, studied what lawyers do, or how if it's not stated, then it's assumed,
Right.
So they came back with a very clever ruling of saying that we're reluctant to identify any new fundamental rights. What does that mean? You already have the fundamental right.
There you go, yeah.
But the way it was said, we're not going to identify any new fundamental rights. Therefore, you're guilty. They upheld the charge, and off I went to a federal diet camp.
Wow. So 1 year in a federal prison they didn't put you in like general population with like gangbangers and murderers and stuff, did they? Was it?
No, I was in a diet camp. I call it a diet camp. It was a camp. It looked like a college campus, but if you walked across the grass, they'd shoot your ass.
So Sean had asked, how about celiac disease? Would it work on something like that? Isn't celiac disease that's a wheat allergy, isn't it?
Well, celiac is a deeper, that could have been brought on by inoculations at some point.
Right.
Is a possibility, but that's probably more well addressed with the proteolytic enzymes, and there's other things like clay, and I would say go to an Ayurvedic doctor or a naturopath, and also consider proteolytic enzymes depending on the severity of it. Typically, they're going to give you a what is it called? They give you the bag on the outside. I forget the name of that.
Colostomy bag.
Colostomy, yeah. So if you've gotten that far with it, then that's the allopaths. They only attack the symptom, and that's usually their answer. So
right.
I don't know that it would help or not help. It isn't going to hurt you. That's the one thing about 714X, and everything we use caused no side effects whatsoever. The 714X has been used since 1968 on millions and millions of people around the world. When Nason first created it in Lyon, he created such a stir in the medical community, he had to leave the country. So he went off to Corsica, which is a French protectorate, and he had to leave Corsica. So he was hosted by the McDonald Stewart Foundation, the tobacco people in Canada, and they put him in at the McMaster Institute, or they put him in the McMaster University or University of Montreal, one of the two. And they put him into the university, and once they discovered what he was doing and how well he was doing, they forced him out of there. So he ended up setting up his house in Rock Forest. And he was never, he wouldn't say a peep. He kept to himself. He didn't want any attention. In fact, he even argued with me whether it's homeopathic or not. He had the white coat, and he no matter what he said, I said, it's homeopathic. I don't care what you say. It's homeopathic, because of the nature of the dilution.
Right.
But that aside, he kept to himself. He just died a couple of years ago. He was born 714X. Seven is the seventh letter of the alphabet. G. N is the what's N? The 14th letter of the alphabet. N for his name, and X is the year of birth. So X, 24. Okay. 24. So there's no mystery other than that it's a gematria,
There you go. Someone just asked if you knew if 714X could be effective in treating multiple sclerosis.
People have used it for that purpose. I don't have anything in my hand right now. It's been better part of 30 years since I was doing what we were doing. Again, since there's no side effects, I would say that It may indeed help, because if you're strengthening the immune system, then the immune system is going to help clear up the causation. Again, you have to peel the onion. Where did it start? What's the diet? What's the person gone through? What is their emotional? All levels you have to handle. This is why it's called eclectic medicine. I was appointed by my attorney, who was the lawyer for the Association of Eclectic Physicians. He nominated me as the director of the National Eclectic Association, which is one of the oldest associations in the United States. They have a library in Ohio that's even protected, like the Smithsonian. If there was a nuclear bomb, it's one of those type of libraries. And that and $4 will get me cappuccino. So
now we've got even more people asking if it's good for this, good for that. As Charles just said, the mechanism of 714X is that it allows your immune system to fight off whatever it is that is ailing you. So there is no side effects. It cannot hurt you. So if there is someone that's suffering from something, then it seems to me that you would maybe want to go ahead and give 714X a try, no matter what it is. Now, what about the delivery of 714X? How does one take it?
Yeah, see, I want to go back to say we're not here to promote 714X. We're here to promote the knowledge. Right. I can't stress it. Look, buy the book. It's $10. It's not going to. You need to. Knowledge is knowable. You don't have to have any level of. You could be not past 6th grade education and still read and gain the knowledge. God gave you the ability to learn. It doesn't matter whether you went to medical school. I mean, when I go to medical conferences, they call me doctor. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
But the equivalency of a PhD is right here.
Yes.
This is my PhD.
Right. And again, the book can be purchased in the link in the description below, and JoJo has been sharing that. Thank you very much. So
back in the day, it was $25 plus shipping, and we sold 50,000 copies in the blink of an eye. This is $10. And I'm available if you want one-on-one. If I can help, I'll help. If I can't, I can't. I mean,
that's great. How would you want me to have people get in touch with you? Would you want me to give out your Skype, or would you want me to give out your email address?
Well, the email is fine, and also I'm begging you, just buy the book. Yeah. If you don't want to buy the book, okay, no problem. But we're not promoting the medicine; we're promoting the knowledge.
Right.
God only knows what's going to happen tomorrow morning. Maybe this whole poor red pill will get cut off. I mean, I don't want to see that happen.
God forbid. What's your email, Charles, so that I can throw it in the description?
My name at Gmail.
Yeah, Charles Pixley.
All right, now, the delivery of the medicine. 714X is delivered in 3 ways. The most effective way is an injection into the lymph gland there's a cluster of lymph in the lymphatic tree of your there's a picture of it here in the book.
Let's see.
Of the lymphatic system, and there's a cluster near the femoral artery near the crease of your leg. And when you're lying in your bed tonight or lying down on the sofa or whatever, if you put your hand down there, you can sense, there they are. You can sense the right in there.
Okay.
You see them? See those black dots right along the femoral?
Yep.
All right, so you can feel those. You can feel the lymph. So it's injected with a 3/8 to a 1/2 inch needle, 27 gauge, 26 gauge, same as a needle you'd use for insulin. It's a 0.5 cc, which is next to nothing. Maybe 3 teardrops. It's nothing, And it's injected directly. You ice down the location. You slide the needle. You swab it with alcohol. You slide it into the lymph.
Mm-hmm.
And it's virtually painless. And you're obviously going to feel the prick of a needle. Okay, come on.
Sure.
But that's it. And then very, very slowly you compress the plunger over, let's say, 5-minute period. So a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit. And when it's gone, you take the needle out and put the ice back on, and you rest for a few minutes. And the first thing you'll notice is that the warm sensation over your whole body, particularly with somebody with cancer. Their whole body, immediately they feel relief. One of the consistent things that was always said, the people who are terminal, they knew they were going to die. There was all we could do is provide a modicum of hope, and we can maybe give them 3 or 4 months.
Make them comfortable, right.
And immediately there's a sense of well-being that they would always say that we felt warm and there was a sense of well-being. And then the lymph, and one of the reasons why this is so powerful with brain cancer is because the brain is swimming in lymph. And this is it's well known that chemotherapy doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier, and these people, these poor, brilliant doctors who started as brilliant children and went to medical school are trained to put radioactive pellets and plates inside your brain, and the next thing you know, one leg doesn't work, and you can't remember what you said 2 seconds ago, and you're jerking around. So the 714X, then we've seen tumors the size of this thing right here.
Right.
Where in 3 months there's nothing.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. I've had a couple of different friends that died from brain cancer, and it's not pleasant.
No. So it's entered into the lymphatic system this way. Now, sometimes people were so advanced, they would take it by injection in the morning, and they would take it by inhalation. When there's lung cancer, sometimes there's a part of one of the lobes of the lung that doesn't get, like you get their whole lungs are cleared out, but there's one little lobe that for some reason the oxygen doesn't get there or whatever. So they would inhale the 714X, and the third way is they put it sublingual, and that's the least effective. So I've done it numerous times for 3 months. The cycle, let's say it this way. The 714X is used for 21 days, and then you rest for 3. So a 21-day cycle, I believe what they're charging today is $500. So you asked me, one of your first questions was, how much?
Yep.
So somebody with cancer, you can't just walk in and expect, you might be cleared in a couple months, possibly, not necessarily guaranteed that, but let's say that we conquer it. Let's say that you're conquering it in 3-4 months, and you see they're just disappearing, and you can confirm this through our test, which is the most calibrated and the best test there is, or through your own doctors who are using other means. X-ray tests that they use. By the way, when they diagnose you with cancer, you go in. The ladies are told they have breast cancer because they see a lump in an X-ray. That proves nothing. X-rays prove nothing. They see a lump. It could be a cyst.
Fatty tissue.
Yeah. So then they'll puncture it. Now you're opening that up to spread through the body. Right. Plus the mammograms themselves, it's proven that they cause cancer. So no matter which way you go in the allopathic industry, it's aimed at one thing. And I'm sorry to say, but they take the gold, they cut you, they burn you, they poison you. At the last 2 weeks or 2 months, they say, I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do, which means, I'm sorry, there's no more money for us. And then they send you home and say, there's no hope, you're going to die. Go home and prepare to die.
Right. I've had several other friends also who, in order to get the treatments paid for, they had to liquidate their entire assets, absolutely everything they had. They had to be destitute and penniless, and they still died. Nothing happened. My father, we found out that he had cancer. He started getting sick in May, and we were taking him to the VA. I was taking him to the VA. Taking him back and forth, all these tests, all these, pokes and prods, trying to figure out what's wrong. On August 5th, they determined that he had non-small cell carcinoma, lung cancer. By October 5th, he was gone. He wasted away so quickly, just 2 months. That's all it took. And it took, like 3, 4, 5 months for them to figure out what was even wrong with him. I mean, it was extremely frustrating. And the idea that you could see this before it even occurs, before someone even starts getting sick. What about this test, Charlie? Is this test available through anyone at this time, or has that been shut down as well?
I want to first answer what happened to your dad. This happens far too often.
Yeah.
People who have cancer, predominantly cancers are our topic. I mean, that's the number one thing. But predominantly, people who are with cancer who have a mindset that I don't care, I'm going to beat this thing, I'm going to get rid of it, I'm going to live. They're going to live. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones who are going to live. When you see a doctor, and the first thing they tell you is you've got cancer and you're going to die. They implant it. They sentence you to death. They instill you with fear. And if they can invoke that fear, then they put you on the conveyor belt, so to speak, or on the carousel, as I say. And we know the rest. So your dad, they robbed him of his hope for life. I mean, they sentenced him to death, and okay, let's, But anyway, so
that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
What was the test? So
yeah,
the Naissance test. If you want to go all the way up to Rock Forest, I'm sure that you have to make an appointment. I'm sure that somebody will be there. Naisson's wife is a doctor of is OMD, Oriental Medicine, and she speaks English. And I cannot swear to it, but I'm pretty sure they'll still do the somatide blood test.
And they can reach them by getting your book, right? I mean,
if you want the blood test that Schildvector did, this is the most highly calibrated test in the world, and it takes, let's just say on the high side, 3 weeks. We send you a kit. You take the kit to a lab. They draw off the blood. They spin it. They centrifuge it. And send back. Then they give you the serum back in a little packet. You send the packet back. We then have the test performed on the serum or on the blood serum, and then we get a written results of that test. It tests for PHI, tests for CEA, it tests for human chorionic gonadotropin, it tests for DHEA, which, by the way, is so. The fastest and the most reliable and the easiest is to buy the test, which is a $600 purchase, and it takes a couple weeks to go through the process. But unfortunately, you may have been told you have cancer when you do not, or you may have cancer and you're told you don't. So this one will tell you for sure, or it can be used to track if you're using, whether you're using Hoxie's or Coley's toxins, or go to see Brzezinski in Texas. Stanislaus Brzezinski, who's been fighting the FDA for as long as I've since before I started, and still today he's been fighting the FDA and the NIH and the CDC, and he has what they call antineoplastins, and he's very successful in treating certain kinds of cancer. Not all. 714X is applicable to all cancers, but I always say 714X should be the way I put it, what Dr. Schildvector used to describe it, and the way I describe it, it's a mosaic. So this is also eclectic. What does the individual need? So if you start with 714X as a cornerstone and add the enzymes, and you add the dietary, and you do Coley's toxins, and you do massage, and you do yoga classes, and you do re-education, and you do meditation and chanting, and do some exercise. Maybe you're already doing, so somebody else who's already doing all those things, they need something else. So that's the eclectic approach. What does the individual need? So again, it's you need more than just one thing.
Right.
Typically.
Yeah. So, yeah, it needs to be the whole system that you need to worry about.
Right. You have to rebuild. You're rebuilding. We're rebooting. I mean, look at our water is poisoned. Our air is poisoned. Now we're getting 5G that are poisoning our airwaves. Yeah. They've weaponized everything, whether they intended to do it that way or not, because we're so rampantly we're a capitalist society. So here comes 5G and 6G, all they care is that we need 5G. Okay, man, let's go make some money. We'll get some towers up. They're not thinking about what the consequences of that. But those who are thinking about it are freaking out that we're going to have some serious problems. So how do we avoid those problems? And what do we do about it after we have the problems? So that's where my stability is. I'm looking at what do we do about it, not, okay, it's happening, so I don't see how we're going to stop it from happening. What do we do to prevent it from hurting us? Do we have to take in certain types of minerals? Do we have to wear helmets? I mean, do we have to have, do we have to paint our house with special paint, and so forth? So this is my strength. So
now, Leslie has asked multiple times in the chat if this is effective against PAL-B2 gene mutation. So the PAL-B2 gene mutation causes multiple types of cancer. But again, based on the way that the treatment works, is it allows your body to fight off any of those cancers.
All right, let's address that PAL2B and Hcg and all these names they've given genes. Let me tell you something. Cancer is not genetic.
Okay.
Why?
Tell me.
100 years ago, people were smoking Pall Malls and Lucky Strike with no filters, and lung cancer was rare. If somebody had lung cancer, they'd bring the whole team by the bed to learn something. Now it's 1 in 2 will have cancer in their lifetime. So tell me how that's genetic.
Yeah, it seems like there must be a lot of environmental factors taking place.
So they've gotten so much investment into this genetic study, the HER2B and PAL2B and all that stuff. Okay, so maybe there is a gene that's aberrant, but it's not from your mother. DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, which is produced by your liver, has the capability of repairing genes. So what do we do so one of the things about our test is we look at your DHEA, what's going on there, and how do we strengthen it? So I don't know if I've answered the question yet or not, but if you've got this marker, it's just a marker. It's like if we get into a discussion of age, then we're going to really bring out some real problems. But so you were told you have a marker. Do you have cancer? I would say take the test. The test is $600, and unfortunately, they're not going to, anything that we're talking about, the proteolytic enzymes, the cholestoxins, and all these things, antineoplastins, all these things. One of the ways that the quote-unquote enemy keeps it off the market is they won't allow it to be paid for by insurance. So they put you, look at what our great President Trump has done. He's created a system now. He created a law or a policy it's called Let Them Try or something like that. Right to try. All right, so here's the right to try. If after using all the tools, the chemo, radiation, and surgery, and that doesn't work, you have the right to try another chemo that's experimental.
Right.
So it's a trap. So, but the initiative, the right to try initiative, the thought process has been planted. So our job, we the people, is to get them who make those policies to understand they need a red pill. And President Trump is a real estate guy. He's not a doctor. Congress people are lawyers, and there's probably one doctor in all of Congress, 2 doctors maybe. And even then, they're not homeopaths. So you can't really, 30 years ago, you would have heard me screaming and I would have been saying the most horrible, awful, disgusting things about these people. But now I've slowed down a little bit. I'm a little more humbled. One of the bigger things that put me in the prison was my pride. Mm-hmm. I attacked them. President Trump attacks. I was so vehement, because these people are killing you. Millions and millions and millions of people have been killed by chemo and radiation. Wake up. We have a right to live. We have a right to these things that are out there, and they're not the arbiter of truth. The FDA operates on a basis that they can do as they wish. Who's to tell them different? Because the politicians don't know, and then you got trillion-dollar operations like Bayer, and we can go into the whole history of Bayer, but all these big companies, they have trillions of dollars. So it's very easy for them to say, here's some legislation, we'd like you to pass it, right. And here's a donation too.
Right, and the FDA, you know, this is something I don't know that a lot of people are aware of, but all of the trials and the proof of the efficacy of these medicines, it's all done by the companies that are creating the medicines. They have a financial interest in getting these things through. They stack their studies so that things will come out and look favorable for them. They can manipulate test results, and the people that work at the FDA, there's hand in glove with these pharmaceutical companies. They kind of go back and forth from regulatory to the private industry.
Absolutely true. It's called a revolving door.
Yes.
I mean, to look at the last couple of years ago under Obama, the head of the FDA was Mike Taylor. Mike Taylor was executive vice president of Monsanto. Oh yeah, we're going to go help get Monsanto off our. Yeah, right.
Yeah, not going to happen.
So what happens is they send in a physician, like a high-level physician or a researcher from XYZ company into the FDA to oversee the approval of XYZ medicine. Then they do their double-blind studies, and as Red Pill just said, the studies are stacked. That's a nice way of saying it. Mm-hmm. It's just fake science. It's falsified. And then all that data is sent back. And not only that, let's say they only have 222 patients. And then they come up with these strange combinations of percentages, this percentage of that percentage of it. And it's not a strict 1,000 people to get 10 people who did this and 100 people. So then all that data is put into the hands of the bureaucrats at the FDA. They assemble it and hand it back to the research guy. He gets the medicine approved. And when he's done, out the door he goes, and in comes another one. So, and if you just recently, just 3 days ago, there was a video out there with Robert Kennedy.
Yes, tell us about that. Yeah,
that video, I don't have it immediately available. Robert Kennedy was in front of Albany Senate giving a lecture out on this right outside, and the lecture he gave, wow, it was talk about boom, boom, boom. He identified the NIH and the CDC as instruments of war, that they're not.
Wow.
It's amazing how deep the deception has gone. So what I've been saying for years is that this is an epic betrayal. If you think that going after Trump and every mainstream media, everybody who is anybody is after Trump.
Yes.
Which tells me that he's doing the right thing.
Oh, exactly. But, yeah.
But what I'm getting at is what I'm not getting at. I lost my point. But
have you tried to get a copy of this book to President Trump?
No, what I do is I write to him through the White House.
Okay.
And I write to him the way that Q writes to us. I ask questions.
There you go. Socratic method.
Very simple. Keep it simple, sweetheart, and just drip, drip, drip. And then I sign it off, Q Army, where we go, when we go all. So
that's awesome.
Lets them know that I'm paying attention, and I have a fighting chance to actually get into somebody's hands. So I've sent off several about medicine, about the right to try. I sent them something that this is a trap. I have to write again because I forgot to say why it's a trap, but at least I put the seed in there.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't presume that President Trump doesn't know. He's pretty knowledgeable. He knows what's going on in many, many fronts.
He's very savvy.
But rather than presume that that I know and he doesn't, I just presume maybe you know this and maybe you don't. But here's my input, because we're all part of the we're all part of the fix. We all have to take part. The biggest attack that's going on right now is First Amendment. They're shutting down channels all over the place. John Rappaport, you know John Rappaport?
Yes, I'm very familiar with John Rappaport. Been following him for years. I heard they shut him down.
I was at a conference in 1992 with Nason, Dr. Schilvector, Nason's kids. Did I lose you? Are you still there?
I'm still here.
What happened?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
My finger stroked the...
Okay.
There it goes. So, we were at a conference in Amsterdam. What's going on here? You can hear me, but anyway, the video part is... I did something wrong.
Yeah, I don't know how to direct you to get it back. But trust me, I'm here.
All right, so we were at a conference. John Rappaport was an AIDS conference because at that time, it was about AZT. They're killing people, and he was a panelist at that time. And Schilvector and Nasons, and we were there. That's the only reason I bring it up. So he's been writing a long time on this topic.
And so let's talk a little bit about the treatment for HIV. What did you witness in terms of the use of this on people with HIV and perhaps even AIDS? Did you see it treated on AIDS?
Yes. First of all, this is where we get a little touchy because HIV, there is no proof that HIV exists.
Right.
And second of all, if you have AIDS, autoimmune deficiency syndrome, it is what it says it is. Your immune system has been depleted to such a degree, you start getting Kaposi sarcoma, you get wasting disease, and
everything under the sun.
All the symptoms. So what AZT, the treatment for AIDS, what gave them those symptoms? It gave them Kaposi sarcoma, wasting disease, where they just had diarrhea to the point of killing themselves, or to dying, I should say. And the biggest thing with AZT and the drugs that they use is a DNA chain terminator. Think about that for a second. A DNA chain terminator. So your DNA replicates, but now we're going to stop its replication. Now what am I stopping? I'm stopping life in my body.
Right.
So they were basically killing people with AZT, and we went out there to protest it. But 714X has been shown to be very, very effective with helping people. I should say it that way.
Wow. Now, how about, I did see a couple people asking about its effectiveness in animals. Did you see it used in animals?
Absolutely. We had horses with cancer and dogs. I don't remember the smaller ones. Probably cats, because they're sniffing the grass all the time, and they're very susceptible to the toxins in the soil there.
Right.
But with children and with animals, it's like, oh my God, it's like bang zoom. It's just because there's no argument going on. There's nothing going on up here going, hey, I don't know. They told me I was going to die, blah, 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 and none of that's going on. They're just open, and you treat them, and they get well. So again, it's not a guarantee, but the point is that there's no psychological aspect to it, which is preventive in some cases. Now, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, Dr. B took umbrage with the statement that about HIV. Now, so she's a doctor. She sees HIV in a lab. I mean, I've seen all the diagrams, of AIDS or HIV injecting itself into cells and stuff like that. Or so, what do you mean when you say that the proof that HIV exists?
Well, let me say it this way: all the data I have, and I'm happy to share it with her, and she can argue against it and
Perfect.
prove it. We can prove to each other. I know Peter Duesberg, who still holds on to the HIV theory, but I've got numerous research papers that show that there's no evidence whatsoever that there is such a thing as a virus. In fact, I met Luc Montagnier, and there's papers where Gallo even admitted that it's a lie. So I don't want to get into a big fight about that.
No, of course.
I mean, they will definitely attack if you start trying to take AIDS away from them, and this whole theory, then that causes a lot of problems. And I'm not.
No, I'm sure Dr. B would love to discuss it with you, and she's a very intelligent and level-headed person. So I think it would be excellent, actually, to have you guys on the show at the same time.
I'd be happy to be wrong. I mean,
what I have heard,
I've seen no evidence, but the answer to your question is yes, it helps. That's the real important part.
Okay, that is the important part. Now, what I have also heard is that the thing that I heard that between HIV and AIDS is that perhaps they don't necessarily have a correlation or a causal factor, that that you can have HIV and not necessarily get AIDS, but that maybe that AIDS, I can't even remember how it was put to me, but that potentially, yeah.
No, I understand what you said.
Yeah. But Dr. B says that she really does want to meet you. You're very knowledgeable and you have a lot to talk about. I would have to agree. Well, Charlie, we've gone on about an hour and a half now. Do you have anything that we haven't hit that you want the audience to know in this last half hour?
Well, let's talk about enzymes for a minute.
Let's do it.
One of the Dr. Schildvector, by far one of the most brilliant doctors that ever walked the earth. He spent 20 years developing several remedies. To say the word cure, then they've made the word cure illegal. I don't know how you can do that, but you can't say you cure anybody.
Sure.
So, but he spent 20 years developing the blood test. He also spent 20 years developing 2 protocols for squamous cell cancer, 1, and melanoma 2. He also teamed up with a man here in the United States. I'm not going to say his name. And they recreated a very famous proteolytic enzyme that came out of Germany from the Gashler wolf, which is written about. Again, that's all that study is in here, the Gashler wolf and enzyme, which was known at that time as wobenzyme. And in the very beginning, in the 1930s, when they first discovered the enzyme factor, in our transverse colon, there's a group of enzymes that exist naturally, that when a person has cancer, they're no longer present. So the Dr. Wolf and Gashler go, well, what's this mean here? What do we do about it? So they spent, I don't know how long, they spent a long time food protein enzymes, papain, chymotrypsin, and various other enzymes, and what's the proper combination of these to be equal to what's in the transverse colon. So they came up with a formula, and I think it was called Legalone or something like that, Casodolan, and they would open up the patient on the table surgically to observe the tumor, and they would inject the enzymes into the corpus, and then within 45 minutes, they would see the tumor start to shrink.
Oh, wow.
So another miracle, right? So the proteolytic enzymes are a big factor, protein digesting enzymes.
Okay.
So this is an important part of your diet. If you're eating papaya, there's papain, and you're eating bromelain. But to have what's nature gave you, if you have cancer and the it's not there, you need to replace it. So the long story short, Schildvector got together with somebody and they recreated the enzymes precisely to the same formula, and we use them at the same time. We use the 714X to augment rebuilding the immune system. As far as the squamous cell, this is a whole nother remedy. It's non-toxic. I'm not going to get into the protocol here tonight or talk about it because I want to preserve what we have. If somebody needs it or wants it, then I'm happy, like with Dr. B or with any of the doctors or any of the individuals, I'm happy to tell you one-on-one. But 714X is out there.
Right.
These other protocols are not. So I want to preserve what we have, but I'm happy to share it. Now back to the 714X. What about 714X? Now, the original book that was handed to me, it was called Galileo of the Microscope. The reason the book came out is because the story came out. And Chris was writing about this man, and in 1989, the government of Canada tried to put him in jail. So he went all the way from France to Lyon to the McMaster University to Rock Forest, and then they tried to put him in the slammer in Canada, and he won his case. Long story short, and therefore, because he won his case, they approved the medicine in Canada.
And is it considered a medicine there, or is it considered a homeopathic treatment in Canada?
Nobody ever considered homeopathic. It's a medicine.
Okay.
That's all, it doesn't say homeopathy on the label, and it just is. I mean, that's nobody. In fact, I've discussed it with them. Why don't you change the label? Say it this way, and there's people do what they do. You can only do so much. So it was approved in Canada for those who are terminal, much like the right to try. You have the right to try it if your doctor says you can try it, if you're terminal, and blah, blah, blah. And then, even then, nobody's educated enough to even know that it exists. So it would be, for the Canadians, they would reverse what I did that got me in trouble, which was have a friend in the United States receive it and send it back to you. You know what I mean? Because you can't get it as a Canadian. They can't ship it to a Canadian.
Wow.
So it's a conundrum for sure.
Excellent. Any other points you want to highlight?
Well, you have any questions? Does anybody have a question? I have a letter. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if anybody wants to throw a question in the chat, then Charlie will go over this, and then I'll see what we can ask here.
I have a letter written by an Auschwitz survivor. If you'd like, I can. This is a man by the name of Victor Penzer, who was from Austria or Poland, I think, where his name would be spelled Viktor, Victor. Dr. Victor Penzer is a MD, DMD, DSc. He is a faculty, the health sciences faculty, and a dentist, and a lawyer. He had all those degrees.
Lots of letters.
Dr. Penzer befriended me because he saw what I was doing, and I'm a fighter. He saw what I was doing, and Penzer was in Auschwitz survivor, and he was what's so important about that is he was forced to work with Dr. Mengele. Well, they did all the experiments on the twins and the children. So here's a young man who was forced to work to do the experiments for Mengele or with the Mengele, and we didn't discuss that very much. But that alone, just to say that alone is enough. And the reason Dr. Penzer was in Auschwitz is because he tried to save his brother from going to Auschwitz, and they caught him, but his brother was freed. So he ended up going to Auschwitz and saving his brother. So Dr. Penzer, when I went to the court battle and I was raising funds, which, by the way, we raised funds to, and Dr. What's the lawyer from Harvard? He's in the news all the time.
Actually, I don't know. Which lawyer from Harvard? Are we talking about Dershowitz?
Dershowitz agreed to take my case after appeal because Scalia was his mentor. Anyway, so Dr. Penzer sent me a $1 bill and wrote on it, "Good luck," and then he sent me this letter. So this, which is also in the book, is the real gift. The $1 was sweet, but this is the real gift. Many years ago, medicine appeared to be a noble profession. It was prior to World War II, before the concepts of genocide or ethnic cleansing became despicable, perhaps, but accepted acts of human civilization. Medicine seemed to be the proper occupation for an idealist, The Hippocratic Oath, "Do no harm," was taken seriously and generally heeded. Advertising by doctors was considered highly unethical. Times have changed, and so have drastically the mores. Using humans as guinea pigs for medical experiments with or without their knowledge and consent goes on in many hospitals of high repute. Advertising by doctors, euphemistically ennobled to marketing, is not only accepted but encouraged. Advancement of medical technology brought by new opportunities for plastic surgery, the original task of which was to repair damaged parts of the human anatomy and restoration of function. This degenerated mostly to become cosmetic surgery, catering to the human vanity rather than to health. Aggressive advertising offers alteration of human, nature-given sex organs, suggesting to gullible potential clients vague advantages without ever mentioning any hazards. Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth is not the advertiser's motto. The managed or mismanaged medical care gives doctors no time to diagnose or treat patients properly. The reports of biomedical laboratory tests guide doctors to prescribing from an arsenal of symptom-suppressing rather than health-restoring expensive allopathic pharmaceuticals. In the process, these chemicals generate new ailments through insidious side effects. Naturopathic and homeopathic medicines are vilified by the disease industry under the pretense of protecting the public. Natural health practitioners are being harassed and persecuted. Health insurance, whether governmental or private, does not pay for any alternative diagnostic or therapeutic intervention. The multi-billion-dollar disease industry influences legislators and law enforcement authorities. Functional medicine, which offers diagnosis in the preclinical stage or loss, is not being taught in medical school. Surgeons offer invasive treatments, even though surgery never removes the cause of an ailment, only a manifestation. Patients are rarely appraised of the potential hazards. Thus, it is apparent that the Hippocratic Oath, "Do no harm," must have been replaced by the Hippocratic principle, "Tell no truth."
Beautiful. Now, I do have someone asking, does Charlie agree with Q that the cure for cancer is in dirt?
Insofar as that we have to restore the mineral content to restore our bodies, I'm told there are 7 tribes on Earth. The most famous one that I know of is called the Hunzas, or Hunzakuts. The Hunzakuts live in the high mountains between Pakistan and not sure where, maybe Nepal. They live to be 140 years old. They have children in their 90s. They have no disease and no sepsis.
It's the water.
The milk of the glacier, which delivers all the minerals, 108 minerals and how many million vitamins we have. So is cure for cancer in the soil? Sulfur is a known cure, curative, I should say. Sulfur medicine's been around for a long, long time and still useful. Some medicines are useful. Allopathic isn't a total failure, but everything this is why it's eclectic. If a person needs a little bit of antibiotic and they need a massage and they need 714X and they need a change in their diet, that's eclectic. But in the medical school, and I'm sure Dr. B would verify this, the nutrition is not a topic. It's what I'm told. It's you get 1 3-hour course or something. I don't know exactly, but we've taken nature has been removed from our curriculum, and this was one of the things that Morris Fishbein was responsible for way back with the Rockefeller when they were forming the AMA, and Fishbein became the editor of the AMA's publication. The AMA at the time was a handful of doctors, and they made it into a big deal, and then he was the editor, and then he was the one who started the whole quack busting.
Yep. This is excellent information. You guys, I just want to remind everyone that if you want to get in touch with Charlie, you can do that by getting his email address. It's in the description of the video. I've also shared the link to his book on several occasions, but the link to the book is also in the video. Charlie, somebody had also asked about if COPD can be treated with 714X.
COPD, I would suggest talking to your doctor, the Dr. B there, but I would say COPD, you need exercise, you need oxygenation.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you stay with COPD too long, your heart's going to turn to mush. And somebody who's got it, they're probably not breathing while they're sleeping. They're not exercising. They're probably I just saw somebody had a question there about childhood leukemia. I just on the chat.
Yeah.
First of all, this is a very, very sensitive topic. Children. The children will respond. I think with leukemia, yes, it's important, but they also need other things that you might find with Coley's toxins, or you might find into neoplasms, or there's something going on in the blood. So with the children in this country, if your doctor tells you your child has cancer, and you open your big mouth and say, I don't know, they're not going to take any of this and that, we're not using chemotherapy and radiation, they will send the authorities and take your child away, and you have no control. They will force that child to take exactly what they think they should have, because you don't know. Yeah. You don't know anything. They are the authority. You lose your child. So you have to be very careful. And I'm not going to give you into tactics, but it should be self-explanatory that you go for a ride.
Yep.
Somewhere. And that's it. And don't and just kind of slip into the night.
Go off grid. Go off grid.
So Mexico, Europe, there's places. Other countries, there's places. One of the things that my lifelong, I spent half my life doing this, teaching this. So it's in my blood now. I mean, even though I've lost some of the enthusiasm for it, because I got beat up pretty good. It cost me everything. And I don't want anybody, I'm not feeling sorry for myself. And it's not about me. When you think about what I said, the first thing I said, 40 million people, since they shut us down, 40 million have died of chemo and radiation. And we weren't the only ones who were getting shut down. But just in the last 30 years, how many people have died just in this country, not to mention the rest of the world. So they hammered me, and it cost me a lot of money, and I had to go do menial labor and drive truck and do all these things. But who really got hammered, who really was beat up, who really was sent to prison is you.
Right, and our loved ones.
So we've been sentenced to death. This is one of the things in the trial.
I had to turn my mic off for that one. The dogs are barking at something downstairs.
Oh, I see. I heard it.
Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear it, man. And I also want to remind everyone that this full upload of this program, once the stream goes down, the show will go away for a moment, but then the full upload will come back up. I'm going to relaunch the show just so that it gets to as many people as possible. So I'd like to ask everyone, considering the important nature of this information, please make sure you share this program once I re-upload it, because it's very important. We've had a lot of people asking about arthritis as well, Charlie.
Arthritis. There was one other question here about thyroid.
Thyroid as well, yep.
If you're talking about any cancer, this should be part of the repertoire. As far as arthritis, is it a rheumatoid arthritis or just arthritis from aging or whatever? So rheumatoid arthritis, absolutely. With arthritis in general, my typical comment is seek out chelation. There's an organization called ACAM, ACAM, and there's others around. You can find it. The best book on the topic of chelation that there's a lot of good books, but the one I always recommend is Bypassing Bypass by Elmer Cranton. And chelation was developed after the Second World War, during the Second World War, because those who did not go to war, many of them stayed home and painted the battleships, and they got lead poisoning. So the chemists of the government came up with chelation, And ethylene diamine tetracyclic acid, or EDTA, is the same thing that's secreted by the roots of plants that chelate or claw the minerals from the soil and goes into the plant. So they put the chelating agent into your arm. Now there are many chelating agents that if you have a good diet, like garlic, and there's about 2,000 foods that have EDTA. They put it into your vein very slowly. They used to be like $80 a treatment once a week or once a month for a year. I think it was once a week for a year. I forget. I forgot the protocol. But you drip it into your vein, and it claws all the minerals out, the calcium and the heavy metals out of your system, and then you urinate it out, and that's that. There's no side effects. It's just a cost effect. You have to pay for it.
Right.
So chelation is there. And millions and millions of people have used it without any side effect very effectively. And this is very, very important for this COPD, perhaps. If you've got blocked arteries, what's the first thing they tell you? Pardon me. Your arteries are 90% blocked. You got to get it right away, and they crack you open and they do a bypass. Now, I'm not going to say that isn't helpful in some cases. But if you can chelate it out, all the plaque, wouldn't that be, instead of putting your life at risk and spending 60 to 80 or a couple $100,000 to open you up, and then maybe get an infection or maybe just die on the table. I mean, any surgery is, you got to be careful. So chelation, I would say, would go first. Then you still need the surgery? Okay, now that we consider that. But that's not the way the industry works. They go for the, got to have this test and another test and another test and another test, and then we got to do the surgery, and then we're going to have to give you these medicines, and it goes on and on and on. And then you get it. They put you into collection, and you put your house up, and they take your house, and on and on and on. They're millions and millions of dollars, in some cases. Next
question. We have, let's see, somebody had asked about plantar fasciitis. Isn't that warts?
Now you're getting into podiatry.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me that, like,
it's like almost like that's. I don't mean to be
right.
rude. It's like almost like a joke.
Yeah. I mean, like, when you've got a wart, I mean, like, your body can't fight it off or something like that, But I mean, I would imagine if your immune system is super powered because you're using the 714X, then I mean, it's worth a try, And again, for everything that we're not going to get to, you guys can get Charlie's book. It's in the link down below. You can also email him at charlespixley@gmail.com. Papanon, thank you very much for that super chat. Now that we're at the end, you guys, I need to give a couple of thanks here. Papanon, thank you. Lori Tafani, we asked about COPD. Alexandria, occasional cortex, the representative from New York, thank you very much. Tanette Booth, thank you very much. And I think we got to everybody. All right, Charlie. Well, listen, man, we're almost out of time. It's 10:57. Any last ones here?
I'm seeing a lot of comments here. This is not a panacea. This is not a cure-all, fix-all. It's never intended to be. Never said it was. Never thought it was. It's there are treatments for Alzheimer's. It wouldn't be. I don't think it would be this one, but that would be chelation.
Yeah.
The whole point is, we can pre-diagnose 2 years before it happens and eliminate 100% at that stage with 714X and other things. That's like an atom bomb went off in the cancer world. There's a book out there called The Cancer Industry, written by Ralph Moss 35 years ago. Mm-hmm. And there's other ones, too, he's a PhD who worked for Sloan Kettering. It's out there if you want to learn it. But the whole key is we all have to learn it. We all have to stand up. You have to be knowledgeable. You walk into your doctor and he tells you something. You got to be able to stand up to him and say, wait a minute. You didn't tell me about this, and why are you putting that in my arm without talking to me about it? And you just gave me an injection, and now all of a sudden I'm quaking all over in my, or you get inoculations for your children, and the next thing you know, they're really sick, or, on and on and on. So you have to become knowledgeable. Again, I'll repeat, knowledge is knowable.
Knowledge is power.
And you can, if you apply yourself, you can learn. I mean, I started with just reading Chris's book, and then ended up now, here's your PhD treatise right here. I mean, it just grows on you. whether it be in geology or homeopathy or whatever your strength is, whatever you love to do. I'm sure there's carpenters out there I would love to study with, for example.
Right.
So, anyway.
All right. Well, Charlie, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for coming on the show. One more thank you to Kimberly Bogan. She said, "What an awesome guest. Bought the book. Team Bogan watching from Satellite Beach, Florida tonight." And also Zoso Dude 77, Red Pill, keep up the great work, and Patriot in Oregon. Now we get L-Arginine cures heart disease from ACJ 713. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Just one more quick reminder. This link will no longer work when the live stream goes down. I am going to re-release this video very shortly. When that happens, please, you guys, share this everywhere because it's a very important subject. Charlie, you've given, like you said, over half your life doing this stuff. So thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for bringing this information to the public because it's extremely important. After the show, we'll go ahead and continue the conversation. But thank you again for joining us, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, everyone. Buy a book and give it to your friends.
I appreciate you being here, buddy.
Thank
you, everyone, for being here with us tonight. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News for Friday Night Livestream. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.